Hi, today is part 3 of our History World War II field trip, the USS Alabama Green Tour. Be back in just a second. Hi, and welcome to our channel. My name is Becky, and this is Russell's Loving Life. We also have russellslovinglife.com, which is our blog, and in both the channel and the blog, we talk about homeschooling, homemaking, and family fun. If you are new to our channel, welcome. Please consider clicking that little bell notification and that subscribe button, and that bell will tell you every time we upload a new video. If you are a returning Russell fam, we are so glad you are back. The USS Alabama was commissioned August 16, 1942. She earned 9 battle stars, and her crew shot down 22 enemy airplanes during World War II. The ship is 680 feet in length with a beam width of 108 feet 2 inches. She is registered at 35,000 tons. That is 70 million pounds. But during battle conditions, she weighed in well over 45,000 tons. That is 90 million pounds. Could you imagine? Her assigned crew was 127 officers and 2,205 enlisted men. So that makes it a total of 2,500 men that occupied this ship during World War II at one time. Our first stop on the Green Tour is the Gunnery Aviation Office. All gunnery and aviation coordinates and records were kept here, and this is where the gunnery officer, assistant gunnery officer, and senior aviation officer did their desk work and filed reports. Alabama's aviation unit and gunnery division worked together to coordinate accurate firing of the ship's guns at enemy targets. Next is the garbage storage. Beyond the second door, the ship's trash burner space can be seen. Final disposal was done within the incinerator in order to completely burn away the waste, usually done at night, so the smoke wouldn't alert the enemy. Number 3 on the Green Tour is the motion picture locker. Both Hollywood movies and technical training films were shown to Alabama's officer and crewmen during the war. Movies were shown on the fantail on a large screen in non-combat zones. Separate showings took place in crews' messing compartments and the wardroom room while in combat zones and bad weather. Next on the Green Tour is a crew's berthing area. Anywhere on the tour, on the Red or the Green Tour, anywhere there is an open space, they typically had bunks like this hanging for the crew to sleep. You are now standing or seeing the officer's galley. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner were served to the ship's officers here. Meal times were 7 a.m., 12 p.m., and 5 p.m. A behind-the-scenes food elevator called a dumbwaiter transported the officers' meals from this kitchen up to the officer's pantry on the main deck. Next, we enter the Warrant Officer's Country. It is a space where the Alabama's warrant officers ate their meals, relaxed, and slept. It also had a small kitchen, a lounge/mesh room, and also had sleeping quarters. Warrant Officer's Country was the off-duty quarters for the specialized technical officers. In short, it was home sweet home. Next is the United States Marine Corps Ships Detachment. During World War II, Marines served on cruisers, aircraft carriers, and battleships. USS Alabama had between 66 to 100 Marines on board at any given time during the war, called the Marine Detachment. These units served as the backbone of both landing and operational forces. Next is the enlisted Marine berthing. This is the sleeping and living quarters of Alabama's enlisted Marines. Approximately 85 men slept in bunk beds suspended from the ceiling, stacked 4 high. Each man was assigned a metal locker like the ones you see throughout the space, where their everyday clothing, personal belongings, and toiletries were stored. 7C is the Junior NCO berthing. A non-commissioned officer is an enlisted military member who holds a position of some degree of authority. This room within the Marine living compartment is where the Alabama's 16 junior NCOs slept. Here is the Marine Tailor Shop. A part-time position, the Marine tailor was responsible for making all major and minor clothing uniform repairs and fitting clothing and uniforms for both enlisted Marines and officers. Notice these rifle racks. The Marines stored their rifles in these racks when they weren't cleaning or polishing them. Here is the Marine Pressing Shop. Like the tailor position, the Marine pressman was a part-time job. This is the place where Marine detachment uniforms were pressed and ironed for formal ceremonies, inspections, and events aboard the battleship. As many World War II veterans would say, the uniform pants creases had to be razor sharp or you would be in big trouble. Here is the Marine Supply Stores. This compartment was used to store individual combat equipment. Extra supplies and gears were kept in this area for distribution to Alabama Marines when needed. Standard equipment including mess kits, canteens, belts, helmets, shovels, first aid kits, and backpacks. Before combat and other special operations, K-rations, also known as prepackaged breakfast, dinner, and supper meals, were issued to Marines. Each Marine signed out his equipment through the detachment supply sergeant. Shown in this gunnery display are the powder surveillance oven, a stereo rangefinder trainer, a wooden mock-up of a 40mm loading mechanism, and the A-end of a Waterbury speed gear. Samples of all indices of smokeless powder on board ships were kept in an oven at a constant temperature of 65.5 degrees Celsius. These samples were inspected every day to ensure that the powder was chemically safe. These cutaway weapons and wooden mock-ups are samples of the types of training devices used by the U.S. Navy. Here is the Landing Force Equipment Locker. In both the European and Pacific theaters of war, emergencies landing forces were utilized on short notice to preserve order in a disaster area, handle local rioting, or assist in quelling uprisings in enemy territories. The Alabama's landing force consisted of the Marine Detachment and 1 to 3 companies of Blue Jackets, the U.S. Navy term for sailors. Here is the post office. The Alabama usually received mail from a destroyer delivered either at sea or while the ship was anchored in port. Mail bags were taken down to the ship's post office for sorting. Mail clerks sorted the mail by divisions. Here you see Bailey and Becca found some holes and thought it would be fun to stick their heads through it. This area is the Combat Information Center, or the CIC. Not sure I would want to be in this area in the middle of a combat. Here you will see the ammunition hoist. In order to move ammunition and powder from the lower to the upper rooms, the enlist hoists were used. This is the EENT clinic, short for eye, ear, nose, and throat. This is the office where physicians, specialists trained in medical and surgical treatment of the head and neck region, tended to crewmen with related disorders. After examination by a doctor at sick call, a man diagnosed with an eye, ear, nose, or throat illness was referred to the EENT clinic for further treatment. The doctor's office was command central for the medical department aboard the Alabama during World War II. This was the administrative office for the ship's medical wing. All medical-related plans, actions, reports, and correspondence went through this office. 3 medical officers shared this space in which they consulted and discussed medical cases with each other, typed up their official reports and/or references their medical journals. Here is the clerical office. Paperwork, paperwork, and more paperwork. But the paperwork process in this room was not examples of the mindless variety. In fact, this office housed the medical, dental records of the entire crew along the USS Alabama administrative records. If you listened closely, you could almost hear the chatter of the typewriter typing records, vital human information. Take a look around this room and notice the equipment used to ensure that this office ran efficiently. A crowded battleship like the USS Alabama required the inclusion of a medical laboratory where varieties of infectious and non-infectious diseases could be studied. Here, blood and urine samples were analyzed to detect any abnormalities and help doctors diagnose various types of illnesses. The dispensary was a small but complete pharmacy drugstore. After seeing a doctor or dentist at sick call, crewmen were often sent to the dispensary with a written prescription. Here, the prescribed medication was prepared and then given or dispensed to the patient along with instructions for proper use and dosage. In this surgical dressing station, although surgical dressing was applied to wounds in this room, it was primarily used as the ship's main examination room. Notice the medical equipment in the room. Glass jars on the counter hold standard instruments like tongue depressors, cotton swabs, and cotton-tipped swabs. A large examining table in the center of the room was where the patient sat and laid down for examination. Here is the operating room. Typically, 3 or 4 surgical technicians assisted surgeons during operations. While most surgeries performed here were on Alabama crewmen injured, crewmen were brought here from smaller ships in the task force that had no personnel capable of major surgery. Crewmen with serious injuries and post-surgical patients were sent here to recuperate. While the majority of sick bay patients occupied the bunk beds in the center of the room, those required intensive care were placed into standardized hospital beds over in the corner. Doctors and medical assistants came into the room regularly to monitor and evaluate patients. Chaplains and buddies of sick bay patients visited here to encourage them and lift their spirits. During the Second World War, large U.S. Navy battleships like the USS Alabama contained a floating hospital section known as sick bay. Here, all medical and dental needs of sailors and Marines were addressed, from general illnesses, physical exams, treatments of infections, disease, or critical surgeries performed on men wounded in battle. All health issues were treated. Daily health inspection of the ship's galley and berthing spaces by medical staff ensured safe and sanitary conditions for all crewmen. Here is the isolation ward. The danger of an infectious disease spreading through a crowded ship was very high. Every effort was made to isolate such cases from the rest of the crew. And if you will notice, there is a small hole in this door so you can see in the room. There were 3 dental officers on the USS Alabama. One, at least, a dental surgeon, took care of the crew's tooth troubles. These 2 offices provided complete dental care for the Alabama's crewmen. These 2 offices, along with an adjacent X-ray darkroom, provided the latest in wartime dental technology to the crew. This is Radio Central, always alive with sounds and buzzing with activity. The very heart of the ship's external communication system was called Radio Central. Here, various machines and devices received and transmitted vital military information to and from the outside world. More often than not, ships like the Alabama did more listening than actually transmitting. This room is the chapel. Religious services aboard the USS Alabama played an important part in shipboard faith, spirit, and morale for the crew. Both Catholic and Protestant services were held on most Sundays, either in mid-morning or mid-afternoon, as announced in the daily bulletin. Welcome to one of the hottest areas to work on this ship, the blacksmith shop. In this compartment, the metalsmiths from the R Division repaired, maintained, and constructed Alabama's metal equipment, from small items like trays, lockers, and chests to large items like ventilation drainage system pieces and hull reinforcement and pipe fitting. Metals used here were iron, copper, brass, and stainless steel. I hope you enjoyed the green tour of the USS battleship that was used in World War II. I will leave a link in the iCard above for the red tour. We had so much fun sharing this information with you. If you have any questions, please drop it in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. And always, please remember to be kind, be careful, be considerate, and have a great day. Bye.